Ever wondered how many historical facts you think you know are actually true, or if there are some that might shock you to your core? Well, history, as they say, is written by the victors. But what if we told you that some of the most accepted historical narratives might not be as factual as they seem? That there are some hidden truths that might just turn your world upside down? Today we're going on a journey back in time, to uncover 10 historical facts that are guaranteed to surprise you. These aren't your run-of-the-mill facts, mind you, but rather gems of knowledge that have been obscured by the sands of time. We'll be peeling back the layers of history to reveal the unexpected, the surprising, and the downright mind-boggling. So, are you ready for a roller coaster ride through time? Buckle up as we dive deep into the annals of history and prepare to have your minds blown. Starting our countdown with number 10, the Great Wall of China, a marvel, but not visible from space, contrary to popular belief. This colossal structure, stretching over 13,000 miles, is often associated with a myth that it can be seen from the moon. This misconception, however, is as ancient as the wall itself. It was popularized in the 20th century, but let's debunk it right now. Astronauts who have orbited our planet unanimously agree that individual human-made structures are indistinguishable from the vast blue and green canvas of Earth. The Great Wall, despite its grandeur, is no exception. It's simply too narrow to be spotted from such an immense distance. In fact, the only man-made structures visible from space are ones that have a significant light or heat output, such as cities at night. So next time someone tells you they can see the Great Wall from space, you can confidently debunk this myth. Moving on to number 9, Napoleon Bonaparte, the supposedly short conqueror. The image of a diminutive Napoleon has been etched into our collective historical memory. But would you believe that this idea is nothing more than a myth? Let's delve into the truth. Napoleon Bonaparte, the French military and political leader, was actually of average height for his time. The confusion arises from a misunderstanding between English and French units of measurement. In French feet, Napoleon stood at 5 feet 2 inches. However, a French foot is longer than an English foot. When converted, Napoleon's height comes out to be around 5 feet 7 inches in English measurements, which was actually slightly above average for Frenchmen at the time. So the next time you imagine Napoleon as a pint-sized powerhouse, remember that the stature of this historical giant was, in fact, quite average. So, the short stature of Napoleon is indeed a tall tale. At number 8, we have the Vikings, known for their horned helmets, or were they? It's a common image that pops into mind when we think of these seafaring warriors. A burly Viking, brandishing a double-edged axe, crowned with a helmet adorned with imposing horns. But hold on to your longships, because this might just be one of history's biggest misconceptions. The truth is, there's no historical evidence to suggest that Vikings wore horned helmets in battle. In fact, the only authentic Viking helmet ever discovered was hornless. The horned helmet myth likely stems from the 19th century when Scandinavian artists included the detail in their depictions of the Viking folk heroes, forever cementing this image in popular culture. So, while it's fun to imagine these Norse seafarers charging into battle with horned helmets, the reality was probably far less dramatic. So, the horned Viking helmet is more fiction than fact. Coming in at number 7, the pyramids, a product of slave labor or a common misconception. We've all heard the narrative, thousands of slaves toiling under the harsh Egyptian sun to build the majestic pyramids. But is that really what happened? Recent archaeological and historical research suggests otherwise. The pyramids, an architectural marvel, were not the result of forced labor. Instead, they were built by paid Egyptian laborers. These workers were respected for their skills, and when they passed away, were honored with graves near the sacred pyramids they helped construct. The notion of slaves building the pyramids likely originated from Greek historians, who visited Egypt several centuries later and perhaps misunderstood the complex social hierarchy. Moreover, the logistics of managing a large slave workforce in the desert environment would have been a nightmare. It's more plausible that the builders were skilled workers, living in a structured society and compensated for their labor. So the pyramids, it turns out, were not built by slaves. At number 6 we have the gunpowder plot, but who was really behind it? Now you might immediately think of Guy Fawkes, the man caught red-handed guarding the explosives. But here's the plot twist. Fawkes was not the mastermind. He was merely a part of a larger group of conspirators. This group was comprised of 13 English Catholics, led by Robert Catesby, who were disgruntled with the Protestant rule. Their grand scheme? To blow up the House of Lords during the state opening of Parliament on November 5, 1605, in an attempt to assassinate King James I. Fawkes, an experienced soldier, was tasked with igniting the fuse. However, their plan was foiled when an anonymous letter alerted the authorities. Fawkes was apprehended, leading to the capture and execution of most conspirators. So, while Fawkes's name is synonymous with the plot, he was but a pawn in the grand scheme. So the real culprit of the gunpowder plot was not who we thought. Halfway through our countdown at number 5, the Iron Maiden, a medieval torture device or a modern fabrication. Despite the chilling tales and grisly images that come to mind, the Iron Maiden's history is not as ancient as you might think. It's a common misconception that this brutal contraption was a staple of medieval torture chambers. However, the truth is somewhat less dramatic. The first recorded mention of the Iron Maiden doesn't appear until the late 18th century, hundreds of years after the medieval era had ended. Its design, featuring a human-sized box lined with spikes, was likely inspired by earlier devices, but its specific form is a product of a more modern imagination. The Iron Maiden's reputation as a medieval torture device is largely due to its inclusion in museums and its depiction in popular culture. But, as is often the case, the reality is far removed from the myth. The Iron Maiden, it turns out, was not a medieval invention. At number 4, we have the Salem witch trials, but were they really burned at the stake? Now there's a common misconception that the convicted witches of Salem were burned at the stake, a chilling image that has been perpetuated in popular culture for centuries. However, the truth is a bit different. In reality, the majority of those accused during the Salem witch trials in the late 17th century were not subjected to such a fiery fate. The grim reality of the Salem witch trials saw 19 of the accused hanged at Gallows Hill, not burned. One unfortunate soul, Giles Corey, met an even more gruesome end, being crushed to death under heavy stones for refusing to enter a plea. Burning at the stake, while a punishment for witchcraft in some parts of Europe, was not the chosen method in Salem, Massachusetts. So the witches in Salem, Massachusetts were not, in fact, burned at the stake. Coming in at number 3, the Trojan horse, but was it really a horse? Now that's a question that's been haunting history buffs for ages. Let's dive in. The most popular belief, thanks to ancient Greek epics, is that the Greeks built a colossal wooden horse, hid warriors inside it, and left it outside the city of Troy as a deceptive peace offering. The Trojans, thinking they'd won the war, brought the horse inside their walls. And well, you know the rest. But here's the twist. Some historians argue that the horse was just a metaphor. They believe it could have been a siege tower, a battering ram, or even a boat, all of which were commonly referred to as horses in ancient times. Isn't that a fascinating perspective? It's like peeling back the layers of a historical onion. So, the Trojan horse may not have been a horse at all. Just missing the top spot at number 2, Christopher Columbus. Did he really prove the Earth was round? Now this is a story that's been told time and again, but let's set the record straight. Contrary to popular belief, Columbus didn't set sail to prove the Earth was round. In fact, the concept of a spherical Earth was widely accepted among educated Europeans in Columbus's time. The ancient Greeks had proposed this idea over 2,000 years before Columbus's historic voyage in 1492. So, what was Columbus's real mission? He sought a westward route to Asia, hoping to establish a lucrative trade route. This misconception likely arose from Washington Irving's historically inaccurate biography of Columbus, published in the early 19th century. So, while Columbus's journey was indeed significant, it wasn't about proving the Earth's shape. So, Columbus didn't sail to prove the Earth was round. And finally, at number 1, the gladiatorial games, but were they always to the death? You might picture a blood-soaked Colosseum with a roaring crowd, cheering as one gladiator delivers the death blow to another. But is that the full story? Well, not exactly. While it's true that the games were brutal, they were not always a fight to the death. In fact, most gladiators were valued commodities, trained at great expense. Their owners, known as lanistas, would not have been too pleased to lose such a high-value asset in every match. Furthermore, the Romans themselves had laws and rules governing these games. A gladiator could appeal for mercy, and it was up to the crowd and the game's sponsor to decide their fate. Yes, death did occur, but it was not as common as we've been led to believe. So gladiatorial games were not always a fight to the death, contrary to popular belief. So there you have it, 10 historical facts that might have surprised you. We've taken quite the journey together, haven't we? Let's take a moment to look back at the road we've traveled. We began with the Great Wall of China, a marvel of human engineering, and learned about its mysterious construction process. Then, we debunked the myth of Napoleon Bonaparte's short stature, a classic case of misinterpretation across cultures and time. Next, we delved into the Viking era, setting the record straight that their helmets, contrary to popular belief, didn't sport horns. We then journeyed to ancient Egypt, dispelling the notion that the pyramids were built by slaves, when in fact they were constructed by dedicated and skilled workers. We unveiled the truth about the gunpowder plot, a tale of intrigue and betrayal that's far more complicated than the simplified version we often hear. We also explored the chilling reality of the Iron Maiden, a device of torture whose historicity is widely debated. Our journey took a darker turn when we revisited the Salem witch trials, a grim chapter of history that serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of mass hysteria. We then traveled back to the ancient city of Troy and questioned the existence of the famous Trojan horse. We set sail with Christopher Columbus, dispelling the myth that people of his era believed the earth was flat. In reality, educated people had known the earth was round for centuries before his voyage. Lastly, we stepped into the Roman Colosseum, dispelling the notion that all gladiatorial games ended in death. Each of these facts underscores the importance of questioning our understanding of history. They remind us to look beyond the surface and to delve deeper into the complexities of our past. Remember, history isn't always as it seems. Keep questioning, keep learning, and until next time, keep blowing your minds with the wonders of history.